to about 75 feet from the door, and these guys are trying to breach it. We believe Antifa was wearing some Trump gear up there because they were breaking the windows, and that we knew they were Antifa. So some patriots grabbed them, stopped them from breaking the windows, and it was just they were throwing sticks at the police. They were trying to breach the door in the center up there. This is not what we're about. We're patriots. We have a problem with the people that serve in that building, not the building itself. But we have a problem with the corruption and the evil and the wickedness of our politicians, and it's got to stop. And all these people are just frustrated because of this, and it stops today. It has to stop. If it doesn't stop today, who knows where our country is going to be? If Biden gets in, our country is going to become socialist, and we do not want that. So that's the story up there. But as patriots, we got to keep praying. God will take control if we let him. And God will purge all the evil and the wickedness out of our country, and these politicians will be replaced with God-fearing patriots, God-fearing Christians, and that's what we need.
So you said that you think it was Antifa members, or or whoever. Can you describe just a little bit more about that? Because that's a very interesting accusation, and I did hear about some people, some Antifa within the crowd. Describe a little bit more about that.
Well, I say Antifa because the way they were dressed in all black. They had the black, skull caps on, and the way they were dressed, the way they were violent. As patriots, we're not violent. So the way they were so violent kind of told me who they were. And plus, patriots grabbed them off, breaking the windows, and they stopped them.
So you're saying, Trump supporters who were blatantly Trump supporters grabbed these people that looked like Antifa,
yes,
and stopped them from breaking the windows.
Correct.
And that's what you saw.
Yes, sir.
Someone told her that one of the 3%ers told me that specifically Antifa was the ones that broke the windows and everything.
One of the 3%ers
giving persistent instruction to the crowd that had gathered. Play the next clip.
Of the Ashley Babbitt shooting. We have audios of the witness interviews, including that of Lieutenant Byrd, who refused to talk to investigators, as best we can tell. And plus, we have photos of Lieutenant Byrd, who was the shooter of Ashley Babbitt. There's a headshot photo, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. So how did we get here? Well, Judicial Watch, despite everyone supposedly being interested in January 6th, Judicial Watch is actually conducting an independent, thorough investigation of what went on. How did it happen? And what about the people who died? We sued, for instance, for the autopsy results of Officer Sicknick, who everyone, the big media and the left lied about the circumstances of his death. And it looks like the medical examiner here in D.C. sat on the truth about his death, which is it wasn't a homicide. And that material was only released after we sued. And we also sued about records about the shooting death of Ashley Babbitt. Here we have a police officer involved shooting of an unarmed woman, 14-year veteran, who was no immediate threat to anyone, and silence, crickets. The Justice Department refused to do anything. The Capitol Police Department, who was run by the politicians on the Hill, namely Nancy Pelosi, refused to do anything and gave him a free pass. And in fact, his name was kept secret from the American people for months until he voluntarily came forward to talk about this and try to defend his decision to shoot and kill Ashley Babbitt. And so Judicial Watch had a lawsuit against the D.C. Police Department and the Office of Medical Examiner for records. And you may recall a few weeks ago, we received records from the police investigation after months of litigation from the D.C. police. And they include witness interviews that make it pretty clear, because the officers were right near Lieutenant Byrd, that Ashley Babbitt was not armed. No one saw any arms in her hands. So there was no mistake. Oh, I thought she had a weapon. Oh, no, she didn't have a weapon. Now, they did find a knife in her pocket after she died, but that didn't have any impact on Lieutenant Byrd's decision to shoot her. She was coming through that window. You've all seen the video that's generally been out there, I'm sure, and presented no imminent threat. And Byrd wasn't there alone. In fact, there are police officers on the other side of the window who just could have pulled her away. Yet he shot and killed her. And as the record showed, so here is the audio interview. Here's the audio of the interview of Lieutenant Byrd.
Today is January 6th, 2020. It is approximately 1938 hours. I'm in Internal Affairs Division. We were located at 119 D Street, U.S. Capitol Police Headquarters. Present is the target of the criminal investigation for the Osterwald shooting. Sir, would you please introduce yourself?
Lieutenant Michael Byrd, United States Capitol Police, House Chamber Section, Capitol Division, pin number.
Thank you very much for that, sir. And if you would please introduce, also present, if you would please introduce yourself.
Agent MPD IAD.
And also present.
Special Agent United States Capitol Police Criminal Investigation Section.
Thank you very much. Now, before we get into the interview itself, I want to advise you of what's called the Garrity warnings. What Garrity says is that you are not required to give a statement to us today. That if you choose to do so or not choose to do so will have no bearing on your employment. That any statement you give is voluntary, but also please be aware that any statement that you give will be shared with the United States Attorney's Office. Any statement you give will be shared with the United States Attorney's Office. Okay. Do you understand the Garrity warning?
I do.
Okay. Are you willing to give us a statement today?
I would prefer to have a lawyer present.
Okay.
Under the information that you just provided.
That is perfectly understandable. And I will not ask you to provide a statement today. I will ask you, though, that when you do secure counsel, you have my business card, my contact information on them. If you have them reach out to me to arrange for you to provide a statement when appropriate.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, then. Well, then, with that said, we're going to end the recording at this time, unless there's anything else anyone would like to add. Okay. But I'm going to end the recording at this time. It is approximately 1941 hours.
So you see, Lieutenant Byrd didn't want to talk. He wanted to have his lawyer, and as best we can tell, no one ever interviewed him, at least in the police department of the Metropolitan Police Department, about his decision to shoot Ashley Babbitt. Of course, he talked to the media about it, but he didn't talk to law enforcement. Isn't that interesting? So this is, it shows you how important Judicial Watch's work is, that we're able to get this information in the face of a Congress that's focused on trying to destroy its political enemies using the pretext of January 6th. And of course, this is not our only lawsuit. As I said, we sued the Justice Department for its information on the shooting death of Ashley Babbitt, the only person killed via homicide that day. And we've sued the Congress for the videos. They're telling the court in our case against them for the videos, 14,000 hours of videos from that day. Not 1 second of the January 6th videos that Congress has can be released to Judicial Watch under the Open Records Law. In fact, they're saying they're not even public records. And if they were, they're not important enough to release. The public interest doesn't outweigh their interest in confidentiality. Well, which is it? The worst day in American history that the public has an interest in figuring out how it happened? Or some just regular congressional day that doesn't require them to start releasing videos of what went on? What happened? Or some just regular congressional day that doesn't require them to start releasing videos of what went on? You know where we stand on it, but Pelosi is the enemy, as I said before, of transparency on this. We have also litigation about the government's abuse of power in terms of targeting innocent Americans, trying to get the financial transaction records of everyone here in D.C. We have that lawsuit against the FBI. We got the military using January 6th as a pretext to start monitoring the social media posts, it looks like, in an inappropriate way of our enlisted officials, our enlisted men and women and who knows who else. Postal Service doing the same thing. Monitoring social media posts. Who knew? We have a lawsuit on that. We have a lawsuit on Nancy Pelosi's conversation with General Milley about